They replayed the moment on every channel in the known galaxy. No context. No caption. Just a still frame of a Trenari officer's scaled hand colliding with a human cadet's face. The sound, a sharp, sickening crack, echoed through every academy corridor, alien bar, and war room. Cadet Ishal Merrick didn't flinch. Didn't stumble. He simply stared back. And then, with terrifying calm, he turned and walked away. The Galactic Defense Academy perched on the twilight belt of Ilvaris Prime, a glass-paneled titan ringed by 17 moons, housing the finest minds and deadliest warriors from over 60 species. But humans were still new. Still watched. Still doubted. Ash, as most called him, had survived the entrance trials by outthinking a dozen simulations built to break him. He was brilliant, no question, but he carried that brilliance like a blade pressed against his own skin. Sharp. Always on edge. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. That afternoon's training exercise had been a joint maneuver drill. Standard operation, aliens and humans paired into squads to simulate extraction under live-fire drone conditions. Ash led his unit with precision, directing movements like a composer in combat boots. Until Commander Zulvar intervened. Zul, a hulking, violet-scaled Trenari with ceremonial blades strapped across his back, was overseeing strategy rotations. He barked out contradictory orders mid-simulation, demanding Ash reposition his flank despite open exposure to synthetic snipers. Ash replied evenly, "That's a tactical kill zone, sir." Zul narrowed his slitted eyes. "Are you questioning me, Cadet?" Ash tilted his head. "Not questioning. Explaining why that decision gets people dead." The silence in the command chamber thickened. Then came the slap. It wasn't a strike for pain. It was dominance. A public reminder of the Trenari military hierarchy, of humanity's place within it. Ash didn't react. But something behind his eyes, something ancient and coiled, unfurled. That night, Lieutenant Naomi Reese stormed into Ash's dorm, jaw tight. "Tell me you're not planning anything." He sat on the edge of his bunk, still in uniform. The red welt on his cheek had faded, but not the fire beneath it. "I'm not planning anything," he said. Naomi folded her arms. "That's not reassuring." She'd known Ash since orientation, 2 years of surviving hazing rituals, impossible drills, and sleepless nights under the same domed sky. She was the only one who could speak to him without triggering the blade behind his teeth. "You let him slap you," she said quietly. "In front of everyone." Ash didn't blink. He wanted a reaction. "You gave him none." "I'm saving it." Her breath caught. "Ash, I'm not going to hit him," he said. "I'm going to educate him." He stood and walked to the small viewport. The moons of Ilvaris floated silently, bathed in crystalline light. His reflection stared back at him, the scar over his brow, the shadows under his eyes, the calm too cold to be peace. "You think this is about ego?" he asked. "About pride?" Naomi didn't answer. "He slapped a human. Not for failure. Not for insubordination. But because he could. Because he thought we wouldn't retaliate." She stepped closer, voice low. "And you think showing them we will makes it better?" "No," he said. "But it makes it clear." By morning, the Academy had spun the incident into a disciplinary miscommunication. Earth's envoy filed an official protest. The Council tabled it for next cycle. The galaxy moved on. But the humans didn't. Especially not Ash. 3 days later, a theft occurred in the Academy's historical wing. A fully decommissioned Earth stealth corvette, a cold protocol relic from Earth's planetary defense program, was missing. No breach alarms. No forced entry. Just gone. Security feeds were scrubbed. Docking logs overwritten. The last image was of Ash staring up at the ship's chassis during a routine field trip. Naomi knew. She traced the navigation override code. Earth standard logic trees, hidden in alien syntax. No signature, but his fingerprints were all over it. She found him in the shadow of Launch Hangar 7, staring at the void as if daring it to answer. I told you not to do this, she said, breath catching in the chilled air. I listened, he replied. Then I did it anyway. The Corvette pulsed beside him, cloaked in shimmer tech older than most stars. What are you planning? She asked. Something they'll remember longer than the slap. Naomi stepped in front of him. Ash, please. This isn't how you fix it. He looked at her, and something in his voice softened. I'm not fixing it. I'm framing it. Above them, the Corvette's engines ignited. Somewhere deep in the Trenari sector, alarms would soon blare. Commanders would shout. Defenses would brace. But it would be 5 minutes too late. The Trenari Forward Command was a fortress of precision, orbiting a mineral-rich moon just outside neutral space. It pulsed with the cold hum of readiness, shield arrays glistening like insect carapace in the void. Inside, rows of soldiers trained, unaware they were seconds from becoming a footnote. A silent ghost slipped past their defenses, the stolen Earth corvette, Chimera. Ash sat in the pilot's cradle, surrounded by archaic analog toggles and retrofitted quantum relays. He'd chosen Chimera for a reason. It wasn't connected to the interstellar net. It couldn't be shut down remotely. It was old, unpredictable, and human, just like him. He stared at the targeting hologram, every coordinate already burned into his brain. The Trenari base was built around a geothermal core, brilliant for energy, fatal when destabilized. He didn't need to fire a single shot. Just trigger the chain. Behind him, footsteps echoed through the narrow cabin. Naomi. Her breath came in short bursts, her uniform damp with condensation from the emergency evac shaft. I told you not to follow, he muttered without turning. You really thought I wouldn't? She snapped, slamming the hatch shut behind her. You're flying a museum piece into sovereign airspace. Do you even have an exit plan? This is the exit plan. Naomi's eyes scanned the controls, realization dawning in horror. You're going to collapse their geothermal grid. No casualties if they evacuate in time, Ash said. They won't. That's genocide, Ash. No, he said, turning toward her now, voice firm. That's a demonstration. No blood. Just noise. I'll give them 5 minutes. Exactly what they gave me. Naomi stared at him, stunned. They slapped you. That's not worth. It's not about me, Ash shouted. Then, quieter, it's about what they believe they're allowed to do to us without consequence. A long silence bloomed between them. The only sound was the deep growl of the ship's power cores warming beneath their feet. Naomi stepped forward. You destroy this base, you become the monster they already think we are. Ash didn't flinch. Then maybe they'll stop poking the monster. Elsewhere, inside the Trenari war room, Commander Zulvar tapped his talons against the armrest of his throne-like chair. Holograms of cadet rosters and fleet readiness floated before him. When the alert came in, it was quiet, too quiet. An Earth signature had breached orbital perimeter. Not a fleet. Not a message. One ship. Put it on screen, he barked. The image sharpened. It wasn't a battleship. It was old. Slow. Barely armed. A murmur rippled across the war room. And then the corvette broadcasted. Not a demand. Not a threat. A single sentence. You struck a cadet. You forgot what we are. Inside Chimera, Naomi gripped the comm rail, staring at the countdown timer Ash had set. It glowed in fierce crimson, 4:19. Please, she said, voice low. There's another way to be heard. Ash met her gaze. They don't hear words. They hear impact. His fingers danced across the interface, launching a coded burst. Deep beneath the Trenari base, tremors began. Back on the planet, sirens howled. Emergency power flickered. AI systems flagged catastrophic grid anomalies, but couldn't identify the source. It was already too late. Naomi swallowed hard. What happens when the Council sees this? They'll listen. For once. And Earth? Ash hesitated. They'll disavow me. They have to. She reached toward him, fingers brushing his wrist. Then why do it? Because someone has to remind them we're not pets. We're not prey. We're human. At T-1 o'clock, the first vent towers ruptured. Molten light spewed into the black sky. Turrets ignited. Ships scrambled. Inside the Trenari war room, Zulvar's jaws opened in disbelief as the thermal maps collapsed in real time. Evacuate! Now! But there was no time. Ash stood, backing away from the controls as the detonation sequences unfolded. He watched the tactical screen light up in silent, brutal bloom. The base fell in on itself like a dying star, vanishing beneath the force of its own hubris. He didn't cheer. He didn't smirk. He watched, the way a surgeon watches a heart monitor flatline. Naomi turned from the window, her voice shaking. How many? Ash cut her off. Enough. The two stood in silence as the stars blinked coldly outside. Then Naomi whispered, You just changed the course of history. No, Ash said. I reminded it. Far across the galaxy, interstellar news feeds exploded. The footage, leaked somehow, went viral in minutes. Analysts argued. Politicians postured. The council convened. And across every species network, one question began to circulate. What happens when a species bred for peace decides it's tired of being slapped? The galaxy held its breath. Not in awe. Not in rage. In calculation. A human cadet, not a commander, not a diplomat, had dismantled an entire Trenari military complex with surgical precision and minimal resources. He hadn't launched a war. He'd left a message. And now, everyone was trying to decode it. Ash Merrick stood in silence as the tribunal's holding cells sealed behind him. Steel-gray walls. No windows. No guards. Just a singular white chair beneath a sterile light, like the galaxy wanted to pretend the chaos outside wasn't real as long as it stayed in this box. His uniform had been stripped of insignia. His wrists bore faint red marks from the quantum cuffs that brought him here. But his eyes were clear. Focused. Unyielding. He sat. Waited. Prepared. On Ovaris Prime, the intergalactic tribunal commenced beneath the council dome, a vaulted chamber where justice was shaped more by power than principle. Tiered seating circled the stage like an arena. Spectators from 100 species filled the gallery, their voices hushed with anticipation. At the center, a transparent containment field. Inside it, Ash stood, hands behind his back, posture straight. To his right, the Earth delegation sat in stony silence. President Reva Miles, sharp-suited and sharper-tongued, offered no defense. Just presence. Earth had chosen a stance. We will not deny him, but we do not endorse him. To Ash's left, Commander Zulvar loomed at the prosecution table, flanked by Trenari war representatives. His fury had calcified into icy decorum. His voice, however, retained the venom. Your Honors, he began. This creature, this human, conducted an unprovoked military assault. He used civilian cover to infiltrate sovereign territory. He destabilized a planetary defense hub. Thousands perished. What more do you need to label his species a threat? Murmurs rippled through the dome. Ash did not move. Then came the signal. His turn. The containment field dimmed slightly, allowing voice transmission. Ash stepped forward. He didn't bow. Didn't blink. He simply spoke. One of your commanders struck me. His voice echoed through the dome, not in volume, in stillness. He didn't challenge me to a duel. He didn't reprimand me through formal channels. He slapped me. In public. Because I disagreed with a tactical error that would have cost lives. He paused, scanning the crowd. Not anger. Not pride. Just clarity. That slap wasn't about me. It was about what you think humans are. That we're unstable. Weak. Unsophisticated. So when one of you hit one of us, no one objected. No one intervened. Ash's jaw tightened. Because you assumed we'd take it. He took a step forward. You call my response an act of war. I call it an education. Gasps spread like wind across dry leaves. You built a base on a geothermal fault. You armored it with pride. You left it unguarded by humility. I didn't drop a bomb. I pulled a thread. The collapse was your architecture's truth, not my design. The Kthari delegate, a crystalline being of logic and law, leaned forward. You imply intent without aggression. I gave them 5 minutes. That's longer than I had to decide whether to retaliate or walk away. Why not report it to your chain of command? Asked another counselor, voice like static. I did. Earth filed a grievance. You shelved it. Like always. President Miles stood then, unexpectedly. If I may, she said. The council buzzed. We didn't authorize Merrick's actions. But ask yourselves, if a Trenari cadet had been struck by a human officer, and then retaliated, would we be here? Silence. You see this as human aggression. We see it as the consequence of ignoring human restraint. She gestured toward Ash. This cadet did more with one obsolete vessel than most of your fleets do in full-scale deployment. And he did it to make you listen. Her voice lowered. Perhaps it's time you start. Zulvar stood abruptly. You demand we applaud terrorism? Ash looked at him for the first time. No, he said. I demand you stop assuming there won't be a response. Outside the tribunal, protests boiled. Some called for Earth's expulsion. Others demanded a re-evaluation of the human treaties. But amidst the fire, fear took root. They had underestimated Earth again. This time, it hadn't been a war. It had been a lesson. And now, the galaxy was asking, what happens when humans stop teaching and start acting? Naomi sat on a bench just outside the chamber, fists clenched. Her uniform bore the scuffs of transit and the creases of sleepless nights. A junior reporter approached her. Lieutenant Reese, any comment on your connection to Merrick? She looked at the camera, eyes tired but steady. He was the calmest person I ever met. Until someone decided to test what happened when he wasn't. Inside the dome, the council recessed. No verdict yet. Ash returned to his containment cell. He sat. Waited. Prepared. He didn't need freedom. Not yet. Because sometimes, the most terrifying soldier isn't the one who fires first. It's the one who waits, after. The verdict arrived with no trumpet, no pageantry, only a chime, low and final. Inside the Grand Tribunal dome, lights dimmed to pale blue, signaling the conclusion. Ash stood once more beneath the containment field, calm as stone, gaze unwavering as the council's spokesperson, a translucent Vincerian diplomat, rose from her platform. In review of evidence and precedent, she said, voice amplified to every broadcast in the galaxy, we find Cadet Ishal Merrick not guilty of war crimes. His actions, while extreme, fall outside formal definitions of sanctioned conflict. However, due to the extraordinary consequences of his initiative, this council formally recommends expulsion from all galactic military academies. A collective intake of breath pulsed through the chamber. Ash didn't react. No chains. No exile. No prison barge. Just silence, the kind that fills the space after something irreversible. Naomi waited outside the chamber's rear exit, her fingers clenched around a data slate she hadn't stopped rereading for hours. When Ash emerged, still unflinching in posture but with shadows heavier under his eyes, she exhaled for the first time in what felt like days. They let you walk? She said. Ash shook his head. They let me linger. She handed him the slate. Every major power's rerouting training protocols. Dozens of species requesting reassessment of humanity's tactical doctrine. Are they afraid? She nodded. Terrified. Ash looked past her to the sky dome, where stars drifted like distant witnesses, unblinking and cold. Then it worked. 2 days later, in a secluded conference dome buried in the polar shelf of Earth's Europa embassy, President Reva Miles met Ash across a steel table with no guards, no translators, no cameras. Do you know how many allies we almost lost? She asked coolly. Yes. Do you care? Ash didn't answer immediately. He studied the reflective surface between them, a war of two minds mirrored in polished chrome. I care that they finally listened. President Miles leaned in. You made them listen through destruction. No, Ash corrected. Through precision. She leaned back, the flicker of reluctant respect breaking through her diplomatic veneer. You're not a soldier anymore. Not in any official sense. I know. But you are, now and forever, the face of what happens when humanity gets pushed. Ash nodded once. We never start the war. But we end it, she finished. A pause. Then she slid a sealed data chip across the table. What's this? An offer. Off-record. Off-world. Something old, something buried. We need minds that think like yours, for things no one's supposed to know exist. Ash didn't touch the chip. Yet. News of the verdict fractured the galaxy into murmurs and echoes. Commentators dissected the tribunal, historians reached for comparisons, while Trenari media declared a strategic humiliation. Whispers of Earth's true capabilities crept into diplomatic halls like smoke beneath closed doors. But the most telling sign came not from governments. It came from behavior. Trenari patrols no longer intercepted Earth vessels without broadcasting apologies first. The word slap was no longer used in military simulations, unless followed by don't. And in every interstellar academy across the colonies, instructors added a new phrase to training modules. Engage humanity only with caution, or consequence. Ash declined the data chip. Not because he wasn't interested, but because sometimes the most powerful message is choosing not to act when everyone expects retaliation. He returned to Earth for a time, then disappeared. No official records. No surveillance trail. Some said he'd gone to the outer reach to study ancient war relics. Others whispered he was building something meant not to destroy, but to warn. Naomi never confirmed or denied anything. She continued her service quietly, but when asked about Ash Merrick, she always said the same thing. He didn't destroy the base to make a point. He became the point. 10 cycles later, a young cadet on a distant moon raised her hand during a lesson on interspecies diplomacy. Is it true a single human brought down a Trenari base without a shot fired? The instructor, a retired Kthari strategist, answered slowly. Yes. Why did he do it? A pause. Then the reply. Because someone made the mistake of thinking humanity had forgotten who they are. The galaxy didn't declare war on Earth after that day. It didn't declare peace either. What it declared, without ever speaking it aloud, was respect laced with fear. And that, as Ash once said, is the only language some species ever bother to translate.